All right, everybody, we're here. We are live. It is Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern in the United of the States. We are going to be doing the All Things Fantasy Grounds talk show. Before we jump into it, we're going to go ahead and do our disclaimer, which we always like to do, and that is that the show is meant to teach and help, but is the opinions stated by the three people on the show are not that of Smiteworks USA LLC or Fantasy Grounds. It's just us talking about stuff we love. Before we get to our special guest to talk about Savage Worlds rule set, let me introduce my co-hosts. Leroon is one of my co-hosts. How are you this evening, sir?
I am doing great. I'm just getting ready for our Founders Day weekend, trying to recruit some people to run some games, getting prizes. Of course, working with you on that, and also out working in different time zones for the Southern Hemisphere so we can keep our college active during the winter and the summer months when we're all out playing and having a good time outside. We at least want to have some people participating in the college while we're out and about.
Very good. All right, and Miss Furied Fate, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm still entertained from our earlier session with
Now,
my
out of context, that did not sound very good.
what?
You're still entertained from our earlier session. Yeah, if people didn't know you meant you were having a game, that could be misconstrued as something
But they
different.
know.
But
They
no,
know.
yeah, we were playing
I under-
Acquisitions Incorporated earlier today. It was our session 0, and it was super fun, and we can't wait to get it moving, more.
Cheerbits in the stream.
Cheerbits,
Thanks for the
Fantasy Grounds
cheerbits.
College, cheerbits. Thank you to Lady Shell for the massive cheerbits, and also for the resub. And yeah, the chat's telling me session means game. Calm down. All right, so let's get to our guest. We have with us Mr. Mark Sim, who is a member of the Fantasy Grounds community. Sildanis, thanks for the sub. I love you too. And he is here to talk about Savage Worlds, and we're gonna let him introduce himself. Mark, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Excellent.
Pretty good.
Glad to hear it. Why don't you tell the people who you are in the Fantasy Grounds community, how you got started in RPGs, and what your experience with Fantasy Grounds is.
In terms of the community, I'm more of a lurker. I do a little bit of freelance on the side for AW games. I've been helping them convert their Pathfinder and 5e to Savage. That kind of part time. I'm not hardcore.
Hey
And
Rob,
in
can
terms
you
of
bring Mark
gaming,
up? Chat saying that.
I got him up as loud as he can go. So Mark, if you could get into your mic, it would really help. We can't.
yeah, sorry about that. Let me kick my sound up. But yeah, I've been doing part time for fun. And then what else can I tell you? Let me check.
When did you start in RPGs?
Oh my God, that's a good one. It was either 1976 or 1976 that I got the bug.
Nice. So yeah, you're about 4 years ahead of me.
Yeah. It was the Arguin Grimoire and Blue Box.
Nice.
And that was before the DMG came out. We were using Dragon Magazine for the DMG. So way back
Oh,
in the
yeah.
old days. You know,
Oh, I
when
wasn't even.
our dice went round.
Yeah, I remember those. I wasn't even aware that Dragon Magazine predated the DMG. I didn't even know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was the book. Like it had the rules in it and charts, cool stuff like that, and was pretty like. And then when the DMG and the Player's Handbook came out, we were so like, oh man, it was such a big deal.
I can imagine how that. Yeah, when I first started in '81, it was already there, but I can imagine how exciting it would have been to not have it and then be like, oh, what's this?
Yeah, it was very free form back then, and what was kind of funny about it is a lot of us started fighting, like picking up swords and shields and crap and bashing.
Cheerbits in the stream.
It
Thanks
was
for the
really
cheerbits.
funny. I don't get armor class, neither do I. And so it was pretty entertaining. And a bunch of us actually turned from gaming like that, went to the Society for Creative Anachronisms and wore armor and fought, things like
Oh,
that.
right,
Sort of
yeah.
following the evolution of gaming. And yeah, it was really funny. And then yeah, I traveled my province. I live in British Columbia in Canada, and I traveled around and became a basically a journeyman style dungeon master. I show up in towns and run games. I'd post in like rec centers and things like that, and get players. I did that for like 5 years
Oh wow.
until I settled in Vancouver, and then I got a gaming group going and was there until '91. Then moved to Victoria and Vancouver Island, ran games there till 2007. Then moved up here to the north end of the island, Courtney, and run games. And then with Fantasy Grounds, the reason I got into Fantasy Grounds is because when I moved to Victoria, my friends kept messaging me. You get emails from your buddies. This was like early days of the internet, saying, why, gee, I miss your games and want to get back. And so we tried a bunch of different stuff, and then I was finally turned on to Fantasy Grounds, and so I ran online game with my buddies with it, and had a lot of fun with that. And then started using it at the tabletop, and then Savage World. Well, I started playing. I kind of dumped D&D and then switched over to early Deadlands and had a lot of fun with that. And then uh, got into Savage Worlds when Savage Worlds first came out, and then all of a sudden Fantasy Grounds had Savage Worlds in it, so it was back to Fantasy Grounds at the table and stuff. Really
Yeah, that's
happy ever
hardcore.
since. Yeah,
I do notice the video is a little glitchy on your tabletop, but that we should be all right. I think you can read everything, and at least people will know. They'll be able to follow what you're doing. So, well, yeah, that's quite a storied history. But I mean, yeah, when you've been doing it for 40 years, then that's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
my 40th year high school reunion this year, it cracks me up, so it's kind of funny.
Oh yeah, mine would be this would be my 35th. I of course am not going to go to that.
Oh, I'm going to go to the 40th. It's
Are
going
you?
to be a laugh riot. Yeah, because I like to see who died. It's like I outlived him. Where's he buried? Sort of thing,
That's funny. So some of the viewers might not have ever played Savage Worlds, might not have even heard of Savage Worlds, and that's why they might be here tonight. But if you would like to sort of let everyone know what Savage Worlds is about, and I think we can pretend that you're talking to people who don't know anything. So when you explain things, I'll just let you do it the way you want to do it. He doesn't have to pretend. Yeah, none of us know shit about this.
Know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, Savage Worlds is more of a universal style gaming system than, say, 5e or Path. GURPS is another one that's popular. It's a universal. I think Savage Worlds handles stuff better, simply. Primary focus of Savage Worlds is that it's skill and trait based, not class. So you don't really have classes. I always say to people, think of it in terms of a job. If you want to say, I want to be a fighter, then you take skills that are fighting, but you don't want to min-max, like just take fighting skills, because you're going to have problems in society because you don't know how to do them. So when you're looking at Savage Worlds character sheets, everybody see that one, the Avocat I got up there?
Yeah.
So you've got your attributes. That's like your agility, which is your dexterity, smarts, intelligence, spirit, which is like your wisdom, strength, obvious, vigor, which is your constitution. That's all from D&D. And then the other thing that's really different is it's not based on like 1 to 18 or 20 or 25 or whatever they do, and it's based on dice. So those are all like die 6, die 8, and then player characters and tough NPCs, we call them extras. They're what are called wild cards. As you see the dice, when I pulled it out, I got 2 dice.
Yeah.
That's because you get a wild. So if I pull out the strength, you get a die 8 and a die 6. See that? That's the sort of thing that's different. And it's the same with skills. So if you got a skill, you get a wild. And then what you do is when you roll the dice, you see in the lower left-hand corner there in my chat box, it basically looks at the dice and you take the highest dice on the roll. But what's really cool is, say if you roll a die 6 and you roll a 6, it explodes. So you get to roll the die 6 again and add it to the first one. And so it really changes things. Like we've had battles where, like, as a GM, it's kind of frustrating. I've had a party member line up on, say, a dragon's eye with his bow, and the other guys are fighting it, and then he makes like a really good roll, rolls a critical, and then his dice explode and basically put an arrow through the brain of Schmog, like do him like
Yeah.
45 points of damage in the head, and it's like, okay, well, you killed my giant killer dragon with one shot.
Yeah, I've played Savage Worlds a couple times, and I love exploding dice. And the reason I love it is I think the very first time I ever made a roll, I rolled a d4 and got like a 31. I mean, it rolled like 4. Yeah, it rolled like 4 like 7 times or something. It was insane.
Yeah, they're pretty entertaining. They can D4, it blows up. It's really funny when you get new and they try to min max, and so they'll try and get their character skills up like D10, D12, and then it's like, crap, man, I can't get above a 4. I can't get above a 4.
Yeah,
and
because
like, why
they're
is this jerk with D4 getting better than me?
Yeah, because the lower the die, the more chance it's
Higher the
going to
percentage
explode.
Yeah, the higher percentage chance of acing. So I always say to people, good skills is D6, D8. D10, D12, it starts getting twitchy. Like, if you roll well, you're going to like knock people down instantly. But if you don't roll well, you're going to be staying below that 50%. So it's kind of funny that way. It's very different. And then the other thing about Savage that's different than, say, D&D is you have edges, hindrances, and then they, again, make your character, instead of like a class, like for example, this person's character is a tiefling and a spellcaster. So they got arcane background magic, so they can cast spells. And then they took like hindrances, they got the racial ability of infravision. And so then they're small, that's a racial. And then they got a quirk, she acts like a cat. We were rolling on that. This is, what is it, Council. And so they want to play thief. My daughter and her friend want to play tieflings, so I made them roll on that sort of like table to generate. And so her character has a cat-like face, so she acts like a cat, and she's bloodthirsty. So when people find out about that, they don't like her and stuff. And so it changes the game quite a bit. And then you get your combat tab. Again, it's pretty straightforward. You just click on the dice, and then you get your damage. And then she's got powers, which are spells in D&D. And then you have power points. So as you cast the spells, it burns up the points. So it's a little bit different than D&D because spells or powers, you can cast them as much as you have power. So, there's different levels to them. So as your character advances in the game, they go through advancement levels, and that changes the spells they can get. But it basically comes down to power and skill, which is quite a bit different than D&D. It's quite often in combat, you'll have wizards flub their spells and things like that, which makes it a lot more exciting to play. And again, they can also ace the spells and get raises on them. And a raise means 4 over a target number, and the standard target number is usually 4, because if enemies want it. And it really changes the game. For me, it's a lot more realistic in terms of, like, for me anyways, because not every spellcaster is always going to cast his spell. I kind of get frustrated when I play in 5e and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, he always casts the fireball. It's like, well, that kind of sucks. Where's the fun in that? And so it kind of changes stuff, makes it a little bit more entertaining. Critical fails are anytime you roll bones, which are 2. So if I was to roll say a fighting, and instead of coming up, there was a 1 there. Instead of rolling the 4 and I rolled 2 1s, I had a critical fail. And that could be all sorts of different things. Like I actually in some of my games have charts for screw ups like that, and then the players can drop their weapon or trip and fall or break their weapon and stuff like that. So
And the rules have a bunch of examples of what you can do, right?
Yeah, the Savage, especially the Suede edition, they built up a lot of stuff from community input and from going to cons and stuff like that. And I was super pleased with the changes for Suede. Uh, they did a really wonderful job. Savage Worlds Deluxe was good. Like Savage Worlds Core was really basic. Back when they first put it out, it was basically like they redid Deadlands and cleaned it up. And so it was kind of tricky at first getting the idea of it. And then Deluxe Edition came out, and that's what we played with until just recently when Adventure Edition came out, Suede as we call it. And they really they put in a lot of different charts and tables and suggestions, a lot of really cool stuff for powers for spell casting. Like you can pump up your powers, you can change them, you can add like they have these modifiers, and I don't know if you guys can see those for like healing, and it shows you like you can blow like 20 points if you had to heal a crippling injury, or Grady healing if the guy's got any type of wound, neutralize poison, stuff like that, all on one spell. So you basically have the healing spell, and then I put a modifier on it, say, -2 to cure this poison, and then they'd have to blow an extra point from their power to heal somebody from poison and stuff. So
Oh,
instead of having
interesting.
so instead of having 5 or 6 spells, or in 5th edition's case, 20 spells for the same thing, we've got one spell. you know,
Got it.
and so it's quite a bit different. They call it trappings too, and that's a big part of spellcasting in Savage Worlds. So Fear, for example, you'd have a trap that lists the trappings. It says gestures, eldritch energy, cold chills. So when you cast the fear spell, you might say, my fear spell is dark skulls popping out of my hands and attacking you. Or like the sigil in Harry Potter, where the death tongue guy, the skull with the snake coming out of it, that would
Yeah.
be a fear symbol. You'd cast that, and you'd say, this is what I did. I cast this spell, and that's what they see. And so it's kind of cool. It lets the players play their characters more, at least when they get into it and start enjoying it. And they have a lot more leeway. New players tend not to do that. So I tend to say, okay, it's take one of the 4 elements: fire, water, air, electricity is air, or, stone. You shoot pellets out of your finger. What? They're mind bullets. Just shoot bullets out of your finger.
Mind bullets.
My daughter, she played a druid, and she said, well, what do I shoot? And I said, you shoot bumblebees. She goes, oh, cool. So she had the bolt spell, and she
Nice.
fired bumblebees out of her fingers.
Nice.
And she loved it. She said, this is so cool. I'm going to bee sting him. And she shot bumblebees at people and killed them.
Nice.
And so it's very different in terms of like that sort of stuff.
I can just imagine somebody, she gets a critical hit or exploding dice on that damage, and it's because they're allergic to bumblebees, and they go into shock and they die.
Yeah, well, it's very different. So, what else can I tell you about Savage? Well, we've got the traits, we got the skills,
What
combat.
about the setting?
Settings
I mean,
are
we all know 5e is like Faerun and fantasy.
I like fantasy. Most role players like fantasy. It's the touchstone. So Savage has some really cool settings of their own that are fantasy based. And then some of us, like myself, I use Greyhawk a lot. It's what I cut my teeth on, sort of thing. So it's kind of funny. Like right now, for 2 campaigns, I've been kit bashing Pathfinder adventure paths to Savage, so my players can play on them, because I just really like the storyline. But there's lots of good plot point campaigns and things like that.
I was in one of a campaign myself. Was Interface Zero 2.0. Do you know about that?
Yep, that's a really cool cyberpunk setting.
Yeah, as my friend was running it, and the coolest thing about it was, even though it took place in the future, it took place where I live. It took place in like the Northwest Inland Empire, so Spokane and Coeur d'Alene and Tri-Cities, like literally the places that I live. And we were driving up the roads that we knew about and got the maps out, and it was pretty fun to actually.
Interface 2.0 is got some really cool rules. I love the hacking rules. They also put out really cool stuff like how they looked at VR and AR, and so it was really cool, and it's a really good setting and a lot of fun. I backed their Kickstarter for 3, so it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, Interface Zero is an excellent sci-fi style campaign. I'm also running a campaign in Seven Worlds, which was a kick, and that's a kind of a more hardcore science fiction campaign stuff. So it's very cool. It handles gunplay. Savage Worlds handles gunplay really well. So
yeah,
that was
I
one
agree.
thing that I like Dungeons and Dragons, the arrows and stuff like that. You've got insane ranges, and again, armor class just doesn't make sense. I can hit you. Can I hurt you? That's usually how it is, right?
Yeah.
And so Savage handles that really well. Guns are deadly. In fantasy games, bows and crossbows are deadly. In Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of times you see players charge guys with bows like across 60, 70 feet. They'll come across it. In real life, you'd be running for cover because that archer is going to probably hit you with 1 or 2 arrows before you can get to, and you're probably going to die. And so it's very different that way. And for fantasy games, it handles it. And then for gunplay games, Deadlands being the most popular, 6 guns, and it handles the gunplay and the magic.
Yeah,
really
I was going to
well.
ask about Deadlands because that's super, especially if you go to the Fantasy Grounds site, the store. It's just, I mean, Deadlands has its own bundle and its own sales thing, and you see that a lot.
And it's justifiably that way because Deadlands is the basis for Savage Worlds. So it's the core idealism and the core build for Savage Worlds was Deadlands, and then they just took the rules and cleaned them up and made them fast and less. The original Deadlands was really cumbersome, and so they cleaned it all up. But they kept some of the cool ideas, like the poker chips. Bennies are really important, so they let you re-roll stuff. They let you re-roll damage, what they call soak. So when you get hit, you can soak damage, so your character isn't instantly. You can re-roll die rolls. You can throw me a Benny as the DM and ask for a clue. I award people bennies for good role play, and so it's really kind of cool. It's a big
Yeah,
part
it's
of the
sort of
system,
like
but
it's sort of like the inspiration mechanic, but it's not used the same way. But it's you get
yeah,
it, you get it for doing cool stuff, or if you know something in the game, some mechanic awards you a Benny, then you can save it and use it later.
yeah, it's really changes the game. Like we use a rule called Joker's Wild in combat. So every time a Joker came up, everybody on that side got. I had to get rid of it because I just went to giving the guy that got the Joker because otherwise my players would sitting on big piles of bennies. And
Everybody's got 17 Bennies.
I put a limit on you're only allowed 5 bennies in my games.
Yeah.
So
I mean, having played, that seems like it would be reasonable because then once you get too many, then you can just be almost invincible during any one encounter because you can just soak.
Yeah, I put house rules on that. Like, you're only allowed 2 soak rolls. You're only allowed 1 Benny re-roll for damage, things like that, because otherwise guys will just keep rolling damage till they get maximum damage and stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of ruins the game when there's no luck involved. So it's like, no, the bennies are there to keep the gameplay going, not to make it so that you. And so they're fun. It's a fun mechanic, and it does make the game a lot more entertaining because things, just like adventure deck cards. I don't know if I got the deck on this. I might not. The adventure deck's another thing that's really cool because it lets you massively change the game. You can pull a card that'll change the game. Basically, force me as GM to give them a love interest or have one of their enemies show up. Oh, the love interest card has been a nightmare for me.
Now, is the adventure deck something? Is that come with it, or is that a separate purchase, or what's the deal with the adventure?
With Fantasy Grounds, it's a separate purchase. It's a module that you got to kick on. I didn't kick it on this one because, again, it's my tabletop game.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't have it kicked on because I forgot to turn it on when I started with the campaign. If you bought in on the Kickstarter, the Suede Kickstarter, you'll be getting an adventure deck which is really cool because before we used to have to buy it separate.
Okay.
But
yeah, and I didn't. I got the Suede. I just got the rule set, so I don't think I have the adventure deck. They're asking in the chat. George's asking, is it possible to add the adventure deck? And I'm. Oh no, he's not asking that. He's asking, can you add to it if you have your own artwork and text? I would imagine it works the same way as any other module. You could probably go in the module and change the artwork if you wanted to do it. I like the art. I think that's really, they're usually evocative of what the card is doing. They spent a lot of time working into that. Yeah.
So it was a big part of the fun. And to me, it is fun, sometimes very challenging as a GM because the guys can just basically, I always say they'll pull a card out in the middle of a big battle and all of a sudden they've got a turncoat on the enemy side. Somebody that's a friend of somebody, or parlay, which is another nightmarish one where nobody fights for 30 seconds. Or my absolute dreaded unfavorite is verbosity. So they pull it out and they slap it on the toughest guy on the other side, and basically he stands there and starts doing villainous verbosity and starts telling you the whole plan. His intelligent, even when he's getting pounded, he keeps talking. So
Nice.
it's pretty nasty. It really changes the game and adds a lot of fun. And yeah, it's very different than other games, at least what I play. It's very fast, it's nasty, but a lot of fun. You can basically change the whole storyline with a few cards and a few good, which is very different than other types of role playing games that I play.
Yeah, yeah. I've never seen a mechanic where you would like draw from a deck and then it would literally change the course of the game, or put a story element in it that's so strong that it disrupts what's been going on. But that sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, it definitely changes. In terms of being a GM, I have tons of extra stuff usually kicking around for that reason. So if they pull something out, if they figure something out and just lay on something on me, I have back stuff for it. And then as campaigns, it makes it really fun because they might pull out an enemy card and say, okay, we're gonna throw it on the enemy card, and so this enemy shows up, and so they might have an enemy that they've made in the um, or they might have one show up. The cavalry arrives, and it might be somebody they made friends with showing up to save their asses in the middle of a big. And I've had that happen multiple times.
Nice.
And another fun one was Out of the Fire. So they were in this one big fight in this guild, in this cult, and they pulled that card out. And what had happened was they ticked off the city of Lankmar's Thieves Guild, and they were in the middle of robbing the shark god temple, and they were losing the fight. So they pulled this card out, and all of a sudden the Thieves Guild guys came in through the roof and started fighting the shark god guys. And so my guys are thinking, okay, we're saved, we're saved. And then the Thieves Guild guys started shooting at them, so it was a three-way back. And the players loved it. It was a lot of fun. It took us 2 full game sessions to do one fight, which was really unusual for Savage Worlds because normally it's really fast and nasty. That's what they always say, fast, furious, fun. But this one, just because the numbers, and I said, why don't we switch over to group? Like they've got a group battle system that you could do this quickly, and the players totally disagreed with me. Said, nope, we want to work this one. So it was just, it was crazy fun. I had sharks coming out of the water attacking them, and cultists and thieves, and it was great fun. It took hours, and that's the sort of stuff that the cards can do, right? It makes it
Right.
very different.
Right now,
And
Mark,
then-
can you talk a little bit about the differences between Suede and Deluxe? What they updated or changed?
Mostly with Suede, it's clarifications and cleanups. So a good example is like, let's say your edges and hindrances, which are a big part of your character development. Before they gave like really crazy bonuses to some, like a +2 bonus in Dungeons and Dragons is, oh yeah, it's a +2. In Savage Worlds, it's a big deal. A +1 bonus is a big deal. If you got something that gave you a +4 bonus in Savage World, that usually means you'll never fail. Okay, so
Yeah.
a +2 bonus for something is huge. So they redid things with the rules. For example, this acrobat edge. So what happens is that anytime the person rolls an athletics skill, they get a free re. Well, that's a huge deal. So grappling is a big part of combat. So like this one says, any free reroll on athletics rolls that involve balance, tumbling, or grappling. So that's huge. So in combat, you might be getting grappled, and say you don't make it the first time. Well, you get a free reroll. You don't have to blow a Benny. You just automatically get a reroll with that. And almost all the edges were redone that to clean them up and make them better and more interesting. And then they got some of the better edges. Like the requirements are pretty tough. I noticed there it says climate. That should be athletic. But this guy gets a +2 damage bonus when they catch the flow unaware. Well, in Savage Worlds, if you catch somebody unaware, flat-footed in D&D terms, it's called the drop, and you automatically get +4 to hit and +4 to damage. So getting another +2 on that means that you're probably going to kill the guy with one shot.
Oh man.
Yes.
Flat-footed is
Yes.
Pathfinder, by the way.
Okay.
So it's less of an expansion and more of an update, Suede.
It's a massive update.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, like rules clarifications. They redid the chase rules. I'm still getting the hang of the new chase. They revamped the magic system and added tons of new stuff to it. They redid all the hindrances and edges and cleaned them up so they make a lot more sense to noobs and to guys that are experienced. Um, they really did a good job. Also, a big part of it was like the hazards and things. They clarified them a lot better.
So then, based on what you're saying, if a person who was thinking about DMing Savage Worlds and had never done it before, they should just jump right into Suede and don't
yeah.
even bother with Deluxe
Don't bother
because
with Deluxe.
right,
No.
because it's a newer, better kind of version of it. Okay,
It's
that makes sense.
it's a far superior update. So it's like the other thing that's really cool about it is it's going to all the upcoming modules now from Peg and everybody else in the industry is going to be Suede. Like we're not going to go back, right? So
Right. Oh
everybody's
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
use
yeah,
Suede.
exactly. Well, it'd be
And
like,
then, yeah.
I mean, people still produce stuff for fourth edition, but that's like the, that's the exception, right? Everything's fifth edition.
Yeah, they're more like specialty guys doing
Right.
that. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
all the big producers and everybody that I've seen and been following, they're all doing like it just makes more sense. It's the newer system. It's to like I said, it's better clarified for the rules. Uh, and one of the nice things about Savage is you don't have a lot of rules. Like the book ain't that thick.
Right. Yeah, I noticed
So-
that. I was surprised that the Savage Worlds Deluxe book, the soft cover book, was like a 5x9 or 5x7 book that was maybe 120. I mean, it was like a paperback that you just toss in your backpack and.
Yep.
And
that was the beauty of it.
yeah,
it
it
was,
was pretty simple.
Yeah, I
And
got
I like
got
that.
a lot of my players in because of that. Because the new system, people are cheap, right? Nobody wants to spend $60 on a new book for a new. And I'd say, well, you can buy this for $10, $12. People are
Right.
like, what? It's like, yeah, that's all the rules, dude. That's not the player's handbook. That's all.
That's everything.
Yeah, and
Sweet.
Suede's they did kind of change. They went to a hard cover for it. So with the Kickstarter, they're producing like the hard cover, but they're also going to do a soft. So it shouldn't be too thick, but it includes a lot more stuff for GMs in it than the original. And so in terms of like fantasy grounds, they're the same price for Suedes or Deluxe. You might as well go Suede. And then
Yeah.
buy the adventure deck for it, and you won't be disappointed. It's worth the money.
And we're gonna give a couple of copies away. By the way, we're gonna give away 2 copies of the Suede rule set tonight. So if you're watching the show, do not leave because you will miss out on prizes.
Nice. So I got a question from the chat.
Yeah.
George Orr was asking specifically, were there any other modules or settings that don't work well with, or has that all been straightened out and updated? So he's probably thinking maybe of an existing products that may or may not have been ported over to Suede yet.
Yeah, I know a lot of the products haven't been Suede, so it's a process. And so with Fantasy Grounds, what I've seen is most of the modules are Deluxe, but really, truthfully, any GM who's running it can convert the stuff over to Suede really quickly. It's not rocket science. They've changed a few of the skills, and then the edges automatically almost all poured over. They're just better clarified. So it's
Okay.
not a huge deal to take something that was Deluxe Edition and convert it to Suede. Like your average module, about half an hour's worth of you going through it, looking at it, and tweaking here and. So it's not like trying to play a first edition campaign in fifth edition D&D, because those characters are nothing like these characters, sort of thing, or fourth edition to fifth. There's a huge difference in that. So with Savage Worlds, it's an expansion on the rules and a clarification. They didn't change all the rules. We still use the wild die. We still have the skills. We still have the traits, edges, hindrance. They've just been clarified better. So it's not a big deal to change them.
Cool.
Yeah, I just find that it to me it's just it was a really good update. I was in part of that process with the team for Savage Worlds, call ourselves Aces. So I was lucky enough to be involved with that process and watch them doing it and put in my own comments and stuff, the few I made, because I was just so fascinated by watching this game come together and stuff be clarified better and things. And I was really impressed with it. And
Nice.
I just think they did a wonderful job. There's one of the an adventure deck card.
Parlay.
Yeah, all characters cease fighting and listen to the hero speak for at least 30 seconds. Others may only take defensive actions during this time. It has no effect on beasts and other creatures that cannot understand the speaker. So yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
So he's got 5 guns in his face.
I call
That's
the ancient
funny.
rite of parlay.
Yeah, nice.
And that's the sort of thing your players will just pull that out and drop it in the middle of, like, just as you surprise them, and the guy will whip that out. Okay, my first round, slap that down. So I've lost my and that's happened. I've had guys pull parlay out when I caught them, ambush. And so it's a lot of fun. And the adventure deck is cool that way. Definitely.
How many cards are in the adventure deck?
I am not sure.
About
I mean,
50 of them probably.
Off the top of your head, is it 50 or is it 500?
What? Let's see.
Oh, so that's the whole list. Okay, so there's
That's the
maybe
whole list.
there's maybe 50. Okay, that
There's maybe
sounds
50. But also what's cool is there's card specific ones. They haven't got them swayed yet. But like if you're playing Deadlands, there's cards specific to the Deadlands deck that'll get put in. There's cards specific to sci-fi. There's cards specific to probably Interface Zero will make their own. So they'll make 2 or 3 cards that are specific to their game, and they'll stick them in the deck. You just shove them in the deck and stuff, and it makes it a lot of
cool.
fun. With Fantasy Grounds, they did a wonderful job with that, with the deluxe edition and all the various settings. And so you'd be able to add as a module edition. You'd go in there and you would see like or where is it? It would be in your settings. In the adventure decks, you'd find like at the bottom there would be like the adventure deck. You see I just got 53 basic cards, the adventure deck. And with deluxe edition, you would have another bunch of drop downs there saying, fantasy or sci-fi.
Oh, so you based on the game you're playing, you can insert those cards. Oh yeah, fun.
Add more cards. And it was really cool because what good is a lazy or broken technology thing in a fantasy? So you wouldn't include it. And so it really added to the game. Like if you had a sci-fi game and you had a technology break, or you take over the other guy's tech, would be a card that I remember in one of the sci-fi games. The guy just basically took over the other guy's robot. He played the card. And so it's there's Villainous Verbosity. I love that card. So I usually get a kick out of all of a sudden telling you my master plan. And that's the sort of fun thing that happens in Savage. And then Fantasy Grounds just handles it really, really well. It handles the cards well for initiative. Another big difference between Savage Worlds and say D20 based games, where D20 is based upon like a die roll and then a bonus. And in Savage Worlds, it's based on card draws and edges. So you can have specific edges that add to the combat, change the combat tracker for you. Like Quick allows you to redraw cards. Level Headed gives you 2 cards. You can choose the better one. I think, what is it? Inspired Fighter or something lets you pull 2 slower cards and take the worst, things like that. It's very different.
And and the cards are ace through 10, Jack, Queen, King, right? It's a regular.
No, it goes up to Joker. So going back to Deadlands, where the Joker was the big part of it, Wild Jack, Blackjack, they always had the picture of the Joker.
Yeah.
So Jokers are added to the deck. I run a 4 Joker deck, so I have 4 Jokers in my deck. So you can have up to 3 or 4 guys at one time having Jokers. It really adds to the game because of that, because Joker's wild. Your guy gets to act anytime he wants in the round. Usually they take the first attack. And they get a bonus of +2 to all their activities. So that means they get +2 to hit, or +2 to saving throws, +2 to damage. And again, +2 in Savage is huge. Like that's a really big deal to get the Joker. And if you're playing Joker's Wild rules, the guy who gets the Joker gets an extra Benny, which means that's a free reroll or a. So the Bennies are really cool. They definitely change like the whole structure of the game and how it works. And so when you're looking at the combat tracker, like right now, you see that there's nobody fighting or anything, but we start, and then all of a sudden the cards come up, and
Oh, so
basically
it is a deck of playing cards.
it's a
Jack,
deck of
King,
playing
Queen.
cards.
Yeah, okay. Now
Yeah,
I noticed that as we're watching this, the combat tracker just keeps flashing. Is that you fidgeting, or does it do that periodically?
that's every time I hit my control key, which is my push to talk. See how it flashes brown?
Oh, okay, that's what. Okay, so because I was like, that would make me nuts if that was doing that during the game. But that's just that's just you keying it. Okay, gotcha.
That's my push to talk key. The
Yeah, that's
players
all
on
right.
the other side don't see.
Yeah, okay.
It also, like, if you look at the bottom, you'll see the bottom bar changes because I'm hitting the control key, so it
Gotcha.
flashes that. Yeah, so I got my fumble charts down. Bring 'em
So
up.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Diablo Bob's asking, I haven't heard anything bad about the Suede update. Is there anything you personally wish they did differently?
Good question. I wasn't too happy about getting rid of like swimming and climbing and all that, and putting in athletics at first, because I played the other system for God, I don't know how many years. Um, and so it was kind of like I don't really get athletics, and then we started playing more and experimenting with it because like I said, I was part of the Ace, so I brought it out in my tabletop. My players played, and then we all really started liking it. And so athletics at first kind of threw me off. It was like I don't understand. They also changed encumbrance, so it's a big part of the game. Uh, is like if you're packing a ton of gear, you're slow and your skills decrease. That used to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of minuses on your character. Now, if you're encumbered, it's automatically -2, and that's huge. So players now are really careful about their encumbrance in my games, anyways, because I follow. That's an optional rule, and I like to follow. So at first we didn't like it. My players really griped. You should have heard the bitching and moaning at the table about it. But they
Because the
quickly
older you get,
adjusted.
the less change you can accept.
Oh
That's
yeah.
right.
And so the guys are like, "Well, shit, man, I'm only packing 5 pounds over my, my first weight limit. Oh man, you're being an asshole." It's like, no, I'm not, man. It's minus. Oh man, that's horrible. And it's like, then dump that extra chunks of armor, and you can't carry a crossbow and a bow and a longsword and a mace and a shield and a suit of chain. You just can't do it. Take an edge lets you pack more gear. And so what they did in Suede is they have things like Brawny, which lets you carry, or Soldier lets you carry more weight. So that the players got wise, and so then it's like, okay, my guy's brawny, and so they all thought, hey, this is really great. Like my guys are all brawny. Well, one of the guys did a brawny thief, thinking this is really great, and then it's like, well, you get a penalty squeezing through things. Huh? Well,
Huh?
yeah, you're big. You're a big human. Like you got Schwarzenegger-sized shoulders. Try going through that 2x2 window. You got a penalty on your athletics roll. So they were all ticked off by that, and everybody had a laugh. So it
Yeah,
gets
but that's
away.
any RPG, depending on
Yeah.
what alternate rules you want to use and how realistic you want to be with it. And like when I play D&D, the encumbrance rule just goes right out the window. Now I'm not going to let anybody walk around carrying 3,000 pounds or anything ridiculous, but I've played in games where we did have to pay attention to encumbrance, and it can be fun. It can be fun in the way that you end up laughing, like you can't do that, and then it's like, oh shit, what do I gotta get rid of something. I guess I'll.
Yeah.
What if I take off this
carry that-
ring? How
carry
much
that
does that weigh? Does the ring weigh 15 pounds? Can I take that off?
And that's sort of the thing that really does change. Yeah, encumbrance and savage is pretty cool. Like bring up a character sheet again. I don't know if I got these people all equipped for new characters. Yeah, so they got some of their stuff. So you can see the character has a load limit. This is a wimpy sort of mage type character, and so her load limit's really low, 20 pounds. She's carrying 19 pounds. So she's got a
Yeah.
backpack and 3 days food. She's got her weapons, and she's got a thick leather jacket on. So, they got to watch it. And
Yeah.
then what they'll do in the game, and I encourage this, is you carry bags. You'll carry like a backpack, and you get into combat that first round, you're going to do a free action and drop that damn backpack. So then
Right,
you
and when
lose
it
that.
goes in the river and floats away, that's all your shit is gone.
That has happened too. And the other thing happened was one of those goblins runs up and grabs that backpack and shrieks with laughter and runs away with it. You know. So yeah, it's fun that way because you'll say to them, well, you should have some stuff on your belt. Maybe wear a belt with like a healing potion on it or like your daggers, but don't carry everything like in your backpack. And then some dummy will do that, and then they'll drop their backpack, and I'll have some orc grab it and run off in the middle of the battle, right?
Love it.
And so it does change stuff. It makes horses really important. Like, you have a mule, a pack mule, and they'll have their gear on that pack mule, especially rations and stuff, because they have weight. And so the players will be more, to me, like the real medieval times, which is, you're not moving super fast, fast as the slowest person, or you have beasts of burden and you use them or porters. Like we played a pulp game in Africa, and they had like 300 Nigerian pack people carrying all their crap for their fancy English. And so when the Cthulhu monsters were attacking them at night, they were killing their bearers. And so when the bearers revolted and ran, the guys were like out, they were playing Englishmen, and they're like, well, what do we do now? They've left with it. They've run off, and all we can do is carry our clothes and our rifles. And it's like, yeah, so what are you guys going to do? You got no food. They left with the food. And it really added to the fun of the game and added to the horror and the whole thing with Cthulhu. Luckily, they'd had a couple of loyal, bearers that stayed with them and packed their stuff. And everybody really liked that because it was like, yeah, these guys are terrified. They're simple people, and their buddy got ripped head to toe by some eldritch horror. I'm gonna run. I'm not gonna stay here and pack this stuff for the white guy. And
Yeah.
so it was
So long, suckers.
you're out here in the jungle on your own. And so encumbrance in Savage, at least in most of the games, pretty much every game I run, encumbrance plays a huge role. Even
Yeah,
the
it can be
sci-fi
fun
stuff.
if it's done the right way. I've always found it to be an exercise in math that people just don't want to bother with, but if you do it right and make it an element of the story and have situations like the one you just described, it can be a lot of fun. And the characters have to deal with, oh well, I lost some of my stuff, oh no.
Yeah, it handles it. Savage handles it really nicely, and with Fantasy Grounds, even better. It's so easy to do that. You just list the stuff on the character, and then it's pretty straightforward. You got your inventory, and
Lose your
they're carrying
backpack,
them.
everything goes with it.
Yeah. And so they would put stuff in the backpack, and then if they drop the backpack, they lose that weight, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. And then arm, like you can see the little wearing thing. So if they drop they're not getting it anymore. You go to their main sheet.
No, I
and they've
noticed
lost-
that
they've
I
lost
know
armor
the
bonus.
I know the 5e rule set doesn't keep track of encumbrance as far as adjusting your rolls. Does the Savage rule set do that?
Yep, Savage Worlds again, and this was where like the previous question, it really shocked us to get a -2 penalty just being slightly encumbered. So
Oh, cool. So
your-
it does
your
that,
trait
and you
rolls get affected by.
nice. Yeah, because in Fantasy Grounds, I mean in the 5e rule set, you have to know. Like I don't think it affects your rolls. You just have to like if you're overweight, you have to make your modifier -2 or whatever. The reason I don't know is because I never use it, right? But
Well, Savage Rules handles so many things differently, and to me more elegantly and realistically. Because, like for example, in combat, if you're hurt, you're not fighting as well as you would if you're not hurt. So as your wound
Right.
levels go up, you take penalties.
Yes,
So
yes.
NPCs, there's like wild card ones that are tough, and then there's mooks, basically like extras. You can call them mooks, most of it, and they just can be shaken and injured, and they're knocked out, they're incapacitated. But a player character, a wild card, he can suffer up to -4 in penalties. Then he goes unconscious at -4, but he can have -3, -2, and that's on all their actions. That makes a huge difference. It
Yeah,
drives
it does.
me nuts when I'm playing the 5e game I play in, is that basically you're swinging full on, no penalties at all, right down to -1. And it's like, come on, man, this guy's half like he's lost half of he's bleeding out
Yeah,
on the
well,
field.
yeah,
And he's not
like
even
I,
affected.
yeah, you can be at 1 hit point and do crit your most powerful attack and still
Yep.
it's not the math doesn't change.
Yeah, and so that drives me nuts. And so it's one of the things I really like about Savage. So wounds are really paid attention to by the players. They're very cautious about not getting.
Yeah.
And to me, that's more realistic. There's 4 of them, and there's just me. I'm gonna run. You know, Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, I'm gonna stand here and fight them. I got armor class 22. I can stand here and fight all day. They might hit me, but so what? I've got 110 hit points. I can keep fighting till I kill them all. In Savage, your hit points is based upon your vigor. So going back to the trait, it's based on your vigor divided in half +2, and then your armor adds to your toughness. So as you can see, the toughness of this character is 6. That ain't tough. That person gets hurt. Well, roll a d6 and it explodes. You've given them 1. Now they're at -1 for everything. So it really changes the dynamic in terms of the game because uh, as your skill goes up, your hit points don't go up. You don't get magically tough. You have to get better armor or take edges that make you bigger, like brawny, or hard to kill, which gives you like bonuses and basically your saving throws, like rerolls and stuff. So it's very in real life. If I stab you in the eye with a dagger, I don't care if you're 20th level or first level. It's gonna put the dagger into your brain. You're gonna die. Savage Worlds does that. Like I said, I got really ticked one time because a guy shot my big schmog-like dragon right through the eye. He took all the penalties, and then he rolled, and then I thought to myself, he's not going to do it. And the guy rolls and just the dice kept exploding. And the next thing I know, this massive killer monster dragon that was terrorized these villagers for 50 years.
Dead.
He's dead. Your arrow went through one eye and out his ear, and you killed my killer dragon.
That makes a really good story, though, even though it bummed you out on your TM. It helps the players.
Oh yeah.
No.
Well, one of my favorite stories with the exploding dice was when I was a player in another guy's game, and I had a blunderbuss, and the old flintlock blunderbuss, and we were crossing a stream, and we were attacked by fairies. So they're tiny, so they're -3 to hit. So they're really hard to hit. They were real buggers, and they were flying around, and they were terrorizing us. They got a +3 to hit us. So these little fairies with like little plinky daggers were slicing us to pieces. And we were terrified. It's like we were screaming out, "The she have got us!" And we're running, trying to get out of this creek. And so we were slow. And I spun around and I pulled the trigger on my flintlock blunderbuss, and it finally fired off. A lot of times I misfired the damn thing, and it hit the. Luckily, it was like the main fairy, and I kept rolling aces, and I gave it 36 points. So the GM just said, "Well, there was a spray of red mist and a pair of like cool-looking fairy wings float into the river, and the other fairies looked at them. Eek! And so that's the sort of thing that you can have in the game that the exploding dice really adds.
Yeah, exploding dice is probably my favorite thing about Savage Worlds. I just love it.
Yeah, it definitely it changes stuff, and then the critical fails, rolling bones 2-1, and then if you look at my thing, I've got fumble that I either found other places or I created myself, and so then I make them if they roll bone on my chart, and you'll see fall down, so he's prone, and then he's -1 on the next round once he gets back, and that really changes the dynamic of the game. When your character's prone, like in a hand they get +2 to hit them, and you're -2 for your actions. So that's a big deal. If you're laying on the ground, you're in big. But of course, in shooting combat, you get cover, so it's a -2 for them to shoot you if they're a distance more than 3 inches away. So we call it inches instead of squares. So that's the other thing Savage does different. It does like inches. So you look on the map, you can see it says 8 inches. And so those basically represent 5-foot squares. So everything in Savage is done on the inch. So when there's
right, so it's not 40 feet; it's eight squares.
8 inches.
Yeah,
8 inches in terms. Yeah. And so it's basically what is that, 1.4 meters or something, so about 5 feet. And yeah, for each inch, and it really changes stuff because again, Savage was designed from Deadlands and very tabletop oriented. So you move your minis around, your pace is 6. Well, that's 6 inches that your character can move,
Right.
normal movement. And so it's very straightforward. You can take edges and make it faster. You can run and take a penalty, things like that. And also, like, missile weapons have penalties based on short, medium, and long range, target movement, target cover, things like that. They take it into account, and so it really changes the dynamic of the game because of that, and it makes it a lot more fun. Oh yeah, Unity. I see. Yeah, Unity's got some pretty cool ideas, and
Yeah.
also like I started using the GM intrusions, I think it's called, from Cypher. So I use those now when people roll bones. I give them an offer of a spare Benny that I call the Golden Benny, and then I'll do a DM intrusion and I can change stuff on them, which is really fun. So yeah, I steal a lot of stuff from other games. Like, let's face it, right? That's the beauty of Savage. I can convert it usually really easily to Savage Worlds. Not always the case with other games. You can't convert a lot of stuff from some other games to your system to make it work. With Savage, I've never had a problem. Any genre, I've done. You name it. Name a genre, I've played. Maybe not kink, but I've done steampunk. I've done Deadlands, which is Weird West.
Yeah,
I've done
it's
hardcore
adaptable
cowboy.
to any setting. I mean,
I did
anything
Pride,
you can
Prejudice,
think
and
of.
Zombies. I did that at a con, and the players went nuts because the book had just come out. And so I converted the book to a Savage Worlds adventure where they were going on their honeymoon, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth and her sister and her husband, and they were going on vacation, and they were attacked by zombies. And I had the flintlocks and the rapiers, and it was a lot of fun. Everybody had a blast. They don't call them zombies; they were untouchables or uncleans or something. It was really funny. And yeah, it did a wonderful job with it. I've done hardcore sci-fi. I've done crazy over the top silly sci-fi, Interface Zero, which is cyberpunk, lots of Cthulhu in different eras, 20s, 40s, World War
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, you
London
can. You
in
can do
1800s.
anything you want.
Yep. It just the settings are a big part of Savage, and the Suede is updating all the settings. Uh, they've even got a new book out with 4 settings built in, and they've got that for Fantasy Grounds. I noticed that if you're a starting GM and you're just getting into Savage, pick that up
Nice.
because it'll have 4 settings pre-built with adventures, and it's got specific setting rules, and so that cuts down on confusion. The PEG forums are awesome. Lots of people have suggestions, house rules, things like that. Any questions you have, Clint from Savage Worlds, it really blew me away when I first started getting in the game and I'd have a question about something. I'd put it on their webpage and the official questions and the official rules. And like 2 days later, I look at it. It's like, holy crap, the guy that wrote the game answered my question.
Yeah, Doug's pretty good about that too. He does for
Yeah.
anything you have questions about with Smiteworks, he'll answer it, or someone will that
Yeah,
knows.
Smiteworks guys are really good that way too. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're exceptional.
But I've heard, yeah, PEG is good, and you don't really hear some companies aren't, which speaks a lot, which
Yeah.
speaks better for companies like PEG when they pay special attention to their customers, because there are some companies out there that make things, and I'm not just talking about video games, but almost anything, anything that the consumer can buy on planet Earth, that they sell you something and then you can't. That's it. That the relationship is over.
Yep. Yeah, you're out of my hair. Get away.
Yeah,
I've got your
yeah.
money. Yeah, PEG is really surprisingly good about that sort of stuff. And again, when I was doing the process with creating Suede, I was blown away by how interactive they were. They really wanted to hear like what we thought of stuff. Like there was chase rules. They went through all sorts of iterations on the chase rules. And they would come up and it'd be like the whole bunch of chase rules. So I'd bring them to my tabletop and we'd have a game, and I'd say, okay, we're gonna have a chase here, and we try the new rules. And my players say, it sucked. Yeah, what sucked? Well, I didn't like this. Okay, I'd write a note, send it off. Somebody else would say the same thing. Okay, good. We'll change that. We'll dump that. Like, just really interactive. And I was really pleased with that, and they're really good about that. And then same thing with Fantasy Grounds, with the Swades tool set. I mean, the Savage Worlds um, group on Fantasy Grounds forums, they're really quick at responding. The guys are great. You know,
Yeah.
I've always been really impressed with it. You watch, like, I go on and check their roadmap, and they'll say, this is what we're adding to the game, and sure enough, they'll put it in. It'll be something really cool that makes a huge difference, and it's just wonderful. I love it. I love playing it. As a GM, I'm running 4 games a week, uh, all Savage Worlds, and I play in one 5e game. The 5e game takes me more time to look up rules and keep track of than my 4 other campaigns, even though I'm like hacking and slashing and building. Because I spend most of my time for GMing either painting minis, building terrain, or um, reading up on the motivations and backgrounds and things that I want my NPCs to say and do than I do looking at rules. Because the rules are pretty straightforward. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's simple, it's straightforward, and it's fun. So there you go. What else you ask? And it's only $10 to buy the
Yeah.
rule
The
set
deluxe
for
edition is only $10. Yeah, the
$7.50
I'm not sure what
now.
they're gonna sell.
It's
Oh,
on
yeah.
sale. Yeah, it's on sale for $7.49. So I'm
Yeah,
about to.
I'm not sure if they got the deluxe, if they got the Suede edition on sale on
Yeah,
Fantasy
yeah, they
Grounds.
do. Because
I would really recommend anybody who's going to go into it to get the Suede edition over to deluxe, even though
yeah,
it's
oh yeah,
priced more.
deluxe. You wouldn't even want to get that anymore. I wouldn't think.
Well, if you can get your hands on the book, then get your hands on the book too, because Suede will expand on it and stuff, but it's going to be a couple more months before the book comes out, and it's always nice to have the paper there or a PDF.
Yeah.
But they've already got the PDF of Suede out, so you could buy the PDF for Suede. So, and I'm not sure if that just went to us Kickstarters though, so I'm not sure on that one. But they've already got the Suede rules. I've got the PDF, and I printed my copy at the table that my players thumb through. But it's kind of funny. 2 of my players got in and actually went more hardcore into the Kickstarter than I did. They bought like the leather bound editions and stuff like that. I was just like, oh man, like wow, they spent serious coin.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
But
no,
I mean,
$10
if you're into it and you're going to be doing it for years and years and years, you might as well.
No, it's money well spent. It's not going to go out of date. The thing that's really funny is I've still got my core books for Savage Worlds, and I could toss them to the players, and all I do is I just highlighted the sections that are changed and just say, that's a Suede chain. And
Yeah.
really, they could still look at those things. The basis of the game hasn't changed dramatically. It's just been clarified better, and there's more stuff added. So you got modifiers and changes. So it's not horrible. We still use cards for initiative. You know, Jokers are wild. You can toss bennies for stuff. They increased the amount of things players can do with bennies because of convention play. So it used to be you just use bennies for rerolls and soaks, and then you could take an edge to reroll damage. Well, now a player can blow a Benny and reroll damage. He can blow a Benny and re-get power points, which are used for spellcast. The GM Bennies is a fun thing. I've had players basically get lost or can't figure something out, and they're getting frustrated at the table. And I say, well, the GM is available. If you guys all toss me a Benny, I can give you a clue. And
give me those bennies.
They give me the Bennies, and I give them a clue.
Awesome. Well, good. It might not seem like it, but we did an hour. So, anything else that you would like to impart to people? Kind of a final thought before we give a couple of these rule sets away.
Yeah, if you're gonna play Savage as a GM starting out, set up a board, like get a map, put your players down, go over the basic stuff. Have a lot of NPCs built into the tool set. Put them on the table, build a character through the character building, and then run combat. Like just go through the tracker and run the combat with them and get the feel for it. Learn about range, learn about gang up rules, which is really important because you get multiple guys around the character. They don't have flanking in this game like they do in D&D and stuff like that. There's none of that. But as you get more guys into a fight, they get bonuses to hit, and that makes a big deal. So like it changes things, and just explore it, play with it. There's also a lot of guys out there on Discord in particular. There's lots of things like Fantasy Grounds College. There's the Fantasy Grounds sites. and people are usually really good. There's Savage World Discord. People are really good about answering questions, getting games. There's usually a Savage World game going somewhere. People let you sit in. It's a really good community, and it's a really fun tool set to use. I literally can't recommend it enough, and I can't imagine getting rid of it or going to another system. Truth be told.
Yeah, sounds like you're into it, which is good. I'm glad we got you today. All right, well, cool. So let's give a couple of these away. Let me go to the raffle thing here, and I'll set it up. Keyword raffle is going to be, well, why don't we just make it Suede? And then we're giving away Suede rule sets. And so what we will do is we'll start a 2-minute timer. So everybody in the chat, you can type in !Suede to enter. And we'll give away 2 of these. I'm going to buy one, and then FGC is going to buy one. And we'll give them away. And meantime, as a matter of fact, I'll do that right now. I'll show you. I'm going to buy one right here, live on stream. I'm going to buy one. And so if you don't win, or if you were thinking about getting this anyway, now's the time. It's $7.50 instead of
Even for Suede?
Yeah.
That's a real deal.
Yeah, because Fantasy Grounds is having their big summer sale, so almost everything. I think anything that didn't come out in the last 60 days is probably on sale, with maybe a few exceptions.
The on sale too. Bofrin's saying, yeah, it definitely, if you're gonna get the adventure deck, it's so much fun. And just get ready as a game master to pull hair out, but it's worth it. I've had so many laughs, especially when they played that love interest card on some bad guys or bad women, and had them change sides, decide instead of torturing and kill them, that she fell in love with the guy. That happened in a World War II campaign with this Nazi torturess. Had her fall in love with one of the heroic French resistance guys. It was so much fun.
So yeah, go to Fantasy Grounds website store, or go to Steam, whichever you prefer. They're going to be the same price. And here's me. I'm gonna put whoever the winner is. I'm gonna put their name in there. There's some previous winners. Mr. Wolf, I gave something to. Guard on Duty, Jonan. So whoever the winners are, let's see what the timer says here. Ooh, 10 seconds, everybody. Oh my God, everybody's got a pretty good chance of winning because there's not that many people entered. Probably a lot of people already might have it. That's why. Okay, here we go. 2-1-0. Okay, here we go. I'm going to draw 2 winners. First winner is Diablo Bob. Excellent. I will, as a matter of fact, do his, and then Leroon can do the second winner, which is M Fontana 3. So
yeah, baby.
Diablo Bob and M Fontana 3, PM me in Discord and let me know your Fantasy Grounds forum's name. In other words, we need that. That's what we have to put in here. I think Diablo Bob's is probably Diablo Bob, but I'll double check before I pull the trigger and mess it up. So congrats to you guys.
Fontana.
You do? You already got his? Okay.
Yep.
And I'll do, I'm sure Diablo Bob's is, did he type it in the chat? No, I don't know. Where'd he go? He left? Diablo Bob, is yours? Oh, he'll PM after the stream, he says. Okay, good. So I'll just leave that there. Very good. Okay. Well, that was awesome. I'm so glad that, Mark, you were able to drop by. That was super cool. For those of you that want to know what we're doing next week, pretty exciting. Again, we are going to have, oh my God, I get to green this out now. That's my favorite part, is highlighting this green and saying it's done. And we did give away 2 Savage Worlds. No, Suede. I'm going to call it Suede. Rule sets. Nice. So next week we have Lisa Chen, or Lisa Penrose. I should maybe change that. She did change her name, so Lisa Penrose Chen. She's at the DMs Guild. She works there. So she will be coming on, and I will be asking her a bunch of questions, but you guys hopefully will ask her questions too. But I invited her on the show specifically because there's a lot of Fantasy Grounds things that we do for the DMs Guild. So she'll have the inside scoop and maybe can tell us some things we don't know or some exciting things that are happening in the future. And then the week after that, we're going to be making an extension live. Celestine and Diablo Bob will be here with me. Week after that is the big prize giveaway. That's FGC second anniversary Founders Day weekend. The last thing happening on that weekend is our show on the 28th. And look what we're giving away. 4 Ultimate licenses, 2 $25 gift certificates to Game Tile Warehouse, something from Devon Knight, which we will nail down soon. I'll be giving away an everything package, so everything I've ever done for DM's Guild. And then we are going to get the ones in yellow we're giving away on the show, but you do not win those on the show. These are for people who DM games for Founders Day weekend. Will be put into a drawing. So if you want a $100 gift cert to the Fantasy Grounds store or a $50 voucher for Game Tile Warehouse, you need to DM a game and sign up to win those. But we're going to give them away on the show, so that'll be fun. All right, I think we're done. Mark Sim, any final words?
No, if anybody has any questions or likes to go over stuff, I was, like I said, I was doing it for a while there on Fantasy Grounds. I've also had people catch me through the forums for Fantasy Grounds and message me and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this, and I've connected up and shown them how I do and played it with them. It's a lot of fun. I don't mind helping others get involved with it. Fantasy Grounds is a great tool, and Savage is a great rule set, so I always have a lot of fun helping people out with it. More than happy to help out, and hope I didn't bore everybody.
No, not at all. We really appreciate you coming. Fury, how about you? Any final words from you?
No, and
No.
a lot of well, I mean, this whole Savage World system, it's definitely new, and it actually sounds like a lot of fun to play. So I hope that we'll see more players playing it now.
Yeah, I agree. Leroon, what is your final word?
My final word is don't forget about Founders Day weekend. And this coming Saturday, we're going to be play testing the Turtle Sphere teaser by Lady Shell on our Twitch channel, which is twitchtv.fantasygroundscollege. And that'll be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I hope to see you all at the Founders Day Festival.
Excellent. Very good. So thanks again, everybody, for watching the show. We hope to see you back here tomorrow for Module Creation Monday with me. I'll be doing another Module Creation as I do on Mondays. And otherwise, you can come to the Discord, check out the schedule for all the shows that we're doing. Usually, unless it's a Tuesday or Thursday, there's something going on at 6 p.m. And then now on Sundays, we have Acquisitions Incorporated at 1 p.m. Those times are all Pacific. Please do check out the DM's Guild and look for items there. And congrats to the winners for the Suede rule set tonight. Thanks for the cheer bits, thanks for the subs, and thanks for the donations, everybody. And until next time, good gaming, everyone.